Okay, let's go. Number 7. The Cahokian civilization. In the year 1100 AD, the largest city in North America was not in Mexico. It was not on the coast. It was in what is now the state of Illinois, across the river from modern-day St. Louis. It was called, by us, not by them, Cahokia. And at its peak, it had a population estimated between 15,000 and 20,000 people. By some measures, that made it larger than the city of London at the same time. The people who built it were the Mississippian culture, sophisticated, organized, and capable of extraordinary feats of construction. Their centerpiece was a structure called Monk's Mound, a hand-built earthen pyramid covering 15 acres and rising 100 feet into the air. It contains more earth by volume than the Great Pyramid of Giza is estimated to have taken to build. It was constructed entirely by hand, with no metal tools, no wheels, no draft animals. Around it, they built 120 additional earthen mounds. The city covered 6 square miles with a carefully planned layout, a grand central plaza nearly 40 acres in size, residential neighborhoods, suburbs, and a series of wooden posts aligned to track the movements of the sun, structures archaeologists call Woodhenge. They traded copper from the Great Lakes, shark teeth from the Gulf Coast, and volcanic rock from distant mountain ranges. Their influence stretched for hundreds of miles in every direction. And then, sometime around 1350 AD, they were gone. The name of the people who built Cahokia is lost. They left no writing. When later Native American tribes moved into the area centuries later, they had no memory of who had built the enormous mounds surrounding them. Archaeologists believe drought, flooding, and internal social unrest gradually broke the city apart. Today, Cahokia is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Less than 1% of it has ever been excavated. Number 6. The Minoan civilization. Before ancient Greece, before Rome, before anything we typically think of as a European civilization, there was Crete. Beginning around 3000 BCE, a people flourished on this Mediterranean island who built multi-story palaces, created vivid and joyful art, developed 2 separate writing systems, and ran a maritime trading network that touched Egypt, Cyprus, the Levant, and Anatolia. They are called the Minoans, named by modern archaeologists after the legendary king Minos of Greek myth. The palace at Knossos was their greatest achievement, a labyrinthine complex of hundreds of rooms, storehouses, ritual spaces, and frescoed corridors that may have housed up to 100,000 people in and around the city. Their art depicts athletic festivals, dolphins leaping through waves, priestesses in elaborate dress, young men and women vaulting over the backs of charging bulls. It is some of the most joyful and vivid art produced in the ancient world. But here's the problem. We cannot read a single word they wrote. The Minoans developed 2 scripts. The first, called Cretan hieroglyphs, has never been deciphered. The second, Linear A, has also never been deciphered. No Rosetta Stone equivalent has ever been found. We don't know what language they spoke. We don't know who their gods were by name. We don't know what they called themselves. Around 1450 BCE, almost all Minoan palatial centers on Crete were destroyed. The most current archaeological evidence suggests the Mycenaean Greeks, a warrior culture from the mainland, invaded and took control of the island. The Minoan culture gradually faded, absorbed, and overwritten. Europe's first civilization left behind magnificent art, enormous palaces, and an unbroken wall of silence. They have been speaking to us for a century. We still cannot hear a word. Number 5. The Indus Valley civilization. At the same time Egypt was building the pyramids and Mesopotamia was writing its first legal codes, a civilization was flourishing in what is now Pakistan and northwestern India that was larger than both of them combined. The Indus Valley civilization, also called the Harappan civilization, stretched across more than 300,000 square miles and may have contained as many as 5 million people at its height between roughly 2600 and 1900 BCE. Their 2 largest cities, Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, each housed tens of thousands of residents. And here's what makes the civilization so astonishing. Their cities were planned on a grid system, remarkably similar to modern cities like New York or Barcelona. They had sophisticated sewage and drainage systems, public wells, standardized weights and measures used across their entire trade network, which stretched to Mesopotamia, the Persian Gulf, and Central Asia. Their merchants traded copper, pearls, ivory, and spices. Their buildings were constructed from standardized fired bricks, all to the same dimensions, which implies a level of centralized planning and administration that should not have existed this early. And yet, we know almost nothing about how this society actually worked. The Indus script, thousands of inscriptions on tiny stone seals, pottery, and copper tablets, has never been deciphered. Unlike Egyptian hieroglyphs, no bilingual text has been found. The language family the script belongs to is entirely unknown. Most inscriptions are only 4 or 5 symbols long, making statistical pattern analysis extremely difficult. The state of Tamil Nadu in India recently offered a prize of $1 million to anyone who can successfully decode it. As of today, that prize remains unclaimed. Around 1900 BCE, the Indus civilization began to fragment. The great cities were abandoned. People dispersed into smaller villages. Why? Possibly the drying of the Saraswati River, possibly climate shift, possibly invasion. The honest answer is, we don't know, and without the script, we may never know. The world's most advanced civilization of its time left behind a language no one has read in 4,000 years. Number 4. Göbekli Tepe. Everything you were ever taught about how civilization works is wrong, and one site in southeastern Turkey is the reason. The standard model of human history says this: hunter-gatherers wandered and survived. Then, around 10,000 BCE, humans learned to farm. Farming enabled settlement. Settlement enabled surplus food. Surplus food enabled people to stop working every day just to eat, and that freed them to build monuments, develop religion, create social hierarchy, invent writing, and become civilized. In other words, farming first, then temples. Göbekli Tepe proves that is exactly backwards. Discovered in 1994 by German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt, Göbekli Tepe sits on a mountain ridge in what is now southeastern Turkey. It consists of a series of massive circular enclosures, each containing enormous T-shaped limestone pillars, some up to 18 feet tall and weighing 16 tons, carved with intricate bas-reliefs of animals: lions, foxes, scorpions, snakes, vultures, boars. It was built, the archaeological evidence firmly shows, by hunter-gatherers, people who had no pottery, no writing, no metal tools, no domesticated animals or crops. They were nomads who hunted wild game and gathered wild plants. And yet they organized a workforce large enough to quarry, transport, and erect stone pillars weighing 16 tons, using ropes, using geometry. Computer modeling of the site has revealed that the 3 major enclosures were positioned using an equilateral triangle as their geometric foundation, meaning the builders had an advanced, abstract understanding of mathematics. Here is the date, 9600 BCE. Göbekli Tepe is 7,000 years older than Stonehenge. It predates the Egyptian pyramids by more than 7,000 years. It predates pottery, metallurgy, the wheel, and agriculture. Then, around 8,000 BCE, the entire site was deliberately and carefully buried. Every enclosure was filled in with soil and animal bones, intentionally sealed. No one knows why. Only about 5% of the total site has been excavated. The rest remains under the hill. Schmidt's conclusion before his death in 2014 was that this site did not come after civilization. It may have been the beginning of it. A sacred gathering place so important that nomadic groups came from hundreds of miles away to build it, and in doing so were forced to organize, to feed workers, to plan across years and decades. The demands of building the temple may have created the conditions that pushed humanity toward farming, toward settlement, toward everything we call civilization. First the temple, then the city. Number 3. The Khmer civilization. In the year 1200 AD, the largest city on Earth was not in Europe. It was not in China. It was in what is now Cambodia. The city of Angkor, capital of the Khmer Empire, covered more than 385 square miles of urban complex, making it the most extensive pre-industrial urban settlement ever discovered on Earth. Satellite imaging and aerial LiDAR surveys completed in recent decades have revealed the true scale of what was hidden under centuries of jungle overgrowth. Roads, canals, reservoirs, temples, suburbs, farms, all perfectly integrated into an engineering system of breathtaking sophistication. At its core was a hydraulic network unlike anything built before. The Khmer engineers constructed a system of canals, moats, and massive reservoirs called barrays, the largest of which, the West Barray, held 1.87 billion cubic feet of water. For comparison, that is more than 20 times the volume of stone in the Great Pyramid of Giza, but in water. This system managed the region's intense monsoon rains, stored water through dry seasons, irrigated rice paddies that fed nearly 1 million people, and formed the symbolic cosmological center of the empire, the moat of Angkor Wat itself, representing the ocean surrounding the sacred mountain of the Hindu gods. The Khmer Empire lasted from 802 to 1431 AD, over 600 years. It produced Angkor Wat, still the largest religious structure ever built by human beings. The temple's bas-relief galleries contain some of the most detailed and extensive carved narrative art in the ancient world. And then, in the 15th century, it collapsed. Research published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences revealed what happened. The Khmer's mastery of water, their greatest strength, became their fatal vulnerability. Tree ring records and sediment cores show that the 14th and 15th centuries brought a period of extreme climate instability, decades-long droughts, followed by catastrophic monsoon floods of unusual severity. The droughts dried the reservoirs and canals. The floods, when they came, overwhelmed the infrastructure and choked it with sediment. The system that had fed nearly 1 million people began to fail. Simultaneously, a rival kingdom, the Siamese Ayutthaya, pressed in from the west. In 1431, Angkor was captured, looted, and largely abandoned. The jungle began to take it back. French explorers rediscovered the ruins in the 1860s. They found a city that had been swallowed by centuries of vegetation, its stone towers cracked by tree roots, its galleries carpeted with fallen leaves, its moats silted up and dry. A civilization that had mastered water for 6 centuries was ultimately broken by it. Number 2. The Mehrgar Civilization. Wait, we already covered the Indus Valley Civilization. Why are we back here? Because there's something even older underneath it that almost no one talks about. Before Mohenjo-Daro. Before Harappa. Before the mature phase of the Indus Valley Civilization that we know about, archaeologists have identified what they call the Ravi phase, a settlement culture at Harappa dating back to at least 3,500 BCE. Even earlier, the site of Mehrgar in what is now Pakistan dates to approximately 7,000 BCE, making it one of the earliest known farming communities in all of South Asia. But most remarkably, recent discoveries in the Gulf of Kambat off the coast of Gujarat, India, have revealed submerged structures under about 40 meters of water. In 2001, the National Institute of Ocean Technology in India announced a discovery of what appeared to be geometric, man-made structures on the sea floor, along with carbon-dated artifacts, including a piece of wood dated to approximately 7,500 BCE. If confirmed as a genuine human settlement, these ruins predate the accepted Indus Valley Civilization by more than 5,000 years. They would represent a city-scale settlement that existed before the end of the last ice age raised sea levels and submerged the entire coastal shelf. The findings remain scientifically contested. Further underwater archaeology has been limited, but what they suggest, alongside Göbekli Tepe, alongside the pre-urban phases at Harappa and Mehrgar, is that the story of human civilization's origins is far older and far more complex than any textbook currently teaches. The vault goes deeper than we thought. Number 1. The Bronze Age. Around 1200 BCE, something happened that no historian has been able to fully explain. In the space of roughly 50 years, virtually every advanced civilization in the Eastern Mediterranean collapsed simultaneously. The Mycenaean Greeks? Gone. Their palace complexes? Burned. Their Linear B administrative records? End abruptly mid-sentence. The Hittite Empire, one of the dominant superpowers of the ancient world centered in what is now Turkey, destroyed. Their capital, Hattusa, burned to the ground, never reoccupied. The Egyptian New Kingdom, severely weakened, nearly destroyed, only barely surviving. The Ugarit civilization on the Syrian coast, wiped out completely. Their city burned so thoroughly that the inhabitants had no time to remove the pottery from the kilns. Tablets found in the ruins are desperate messages calling for help that never came. Cyprus, devastated. The great cities of Canaan, burned and abandoned, one after another. An entire interconnected world of Bronze Age civilizations, the trading networks, the diplomatic systems, the palace economies, the writing traditions, erased within a single human lifetime. Historians call it the Late Bronze Age collapse. It is one of the most catastrophic civilizational failures in recorded history. And after nearly 3,000 years of study, scholars still disagree fundamentally about what caused it. The most commonly cited culprits include a wave of mysterious invaders whom the Egyptians called the Sea Peoples, who appear in inscriptions attacking coastlines across the region. Severe, multi-decade drought confirmed by pollen core analysis in the Eastern Mediterranean. Earthquakes. Disruption of long-distance trade networks that Bronze Age palace economies depended on. And internal social upheaval and rebellion. Most scholars today believe the answer was all of them at once, a perfect storm of interconnected failures in a highly interconnected and therefore deeply fragile world. What makes this so unsettling is not just the scale of the destruction, it is the silence that came after. The areas that had been covered in literate, complex urban civilizations entered centuries of illiteracy, depopulation, and archaeological invisibility. When writing reemerges in the region, the cultures using it are almost entirely new. The old world had simply stopped. The people who survived didn't know what had killed their civilization. They just knew it was gone.